Welcome to 10 Minutes With. It's a podcast for people who want to listen to podcasts but don't have all day. We've got a quick chat with someone you might be interested in learning more about in about 10 minutes. I'm Terese Main. Alistair Begg started his ministry in the UK, and you realize it as soon as he opens his mouth. But for the past 40 years, he's been serving in Cleveland, Ohio at Parkside Church. His program, Truth for Life, airs weeknights at 8:30 on Family Life. So how exactly did you end up in Ohio from Scotland?
Well, I joke and I say I was sent here as a punishment, but that's not fair to the Ohioans who have welcomed me with such open arms. The short answer is simple. That is that somebody gave my name to the church here when they were in an interim phase between pastors, and as a result of that, through many dangers, toils, and snares, it ended up with Sue and I and our three small children moving here on the 3rd of August, 1983.
Can you tell us how you met your sweet wife?
As a 16-year-old, went with a couple of friends to a youth holiday in Switzerland. On that holiday, there were two American girls, and one of them was one of four Jones daughters who was living in London as a result of their father's employment. And my friends were invited to a kind of follow-up get-together so that we could show our slides and transparencies to each other and reflect on the holiday. And we were invited to this particular American family's home for lunch. And I had never met an American family before, so it was quite intriguing. And on that occasion, one of this girl's sisters was sitting opposite me at the table as we had lunch. And as a result of that, I sent her a postcard the next day from Carnaby Street in London. And I asked her to ask her mom if it would be okay if we wrote letters to one another. I live 300 miles away. And so we began writing letters, and we ended up writing letters for 7 years, the last 4 of them across the Atlantic Ocean. And running out of postage, we got married in Philadelphia in 1975. Sometimes, even as I rehearse it now, I can't believe that it actually happened.
Did you know when you first saw her?
I knew that I had met a girl that had beautiful eyes. That's what I told my mother. I said, I met a girl and she has beautiful eyes. And if eyes are the way into the soul, then what I saw in those teenage eyes bode well for, let's put it this way, the last 49 years of enjoying her company.
And she has ministered alongside of you to the people of this church in Cleveland.
Yeah, she really has. I left her a note, and I said, because this is the start of 50 years together now, so I wrote a note and said, well, here we go, the start of year 50, and you are such a huge part of this adventure. Without you, there's no flowers. Without you, there's no food. Without you, there's no fun. Without you, I just would have to say my prayers by myself. So, yeah, I don't think she fully understands how vital she is to just my psyche, apart from anything else. Just keep me sane.
You suffered a great tragedy as a young man. When you were 20, your mother died. And when you looked back on that, you were quoted as saying, more spiritual progress is made through failure and tears than success and laughter. I think especially in American Christian culture, we are led to believe if things are not going well for me, God must be displeased with me. But there's great growth that happens in the valley.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible bears testimony to that, first of all, doesn't it? And, even just viewing the trajectory of the life and ministry of Jesus, it bears testimony to it, that he was a man of sorrows, he was acquainted with grief, that trials come to prove us, and they come to reprove us as well very often. I just met with a couple yesterday. They came to see me. I hadn't spoken personally to them for a while, and I wondered why they'd waited in a long line to speak to me. And then I realized that it was 6 years to the day when their son David died of a drug overdose, and I had known him and conducted his funeral. And it was a reminder to me again of just what you're saying. And although the freshness of that wound, reappears on those kind of anniversaries, they've been able to prove God's faithfulness in it and through it. And I guess that's the testimony of us all, really.
You have such an unusual perspective of coming from the European church, coming into the American church, and really the American Heartland Church. Is there any place that's more average American than Cleveland, Ohio? What is the thing the American church needs more than anything?
There is an ocean between us, but, I just read an article this morning in the Times, and the person was bemoaning the fact of the Americanization of the UK, expressly in the extravagant way in which Americans have been cajoled into leaving huge tips for very little being done, so that somebody gives you a cup of coffee and they spin a thing in front of you, and you can give them 25% of the cost of the coffee just for reaching behind and getting it. So he was saying, this is not good, but I would say actually that the generosity of the American spirit is something that certainly in Scotland we could use a dose of. And the American church has, over the last, 150 years, been at the forefront, and in many ways is still at the forefront of reaching out to the entire world with the gospel. And I am a beneficiary of the fact that it was American Christians that taught me the importance of being able to understand and share my faith. And so I'm loath to say, I'm from the outside and this is what we need. It's what we all need, I think, that we need in Western culture God to come and revive the church in the midst of these years. I don't think there is anything other than a great move of the Spirit of God that is going to be able to reclaim so much that has been lost in the last 25 or 30 years here in the States. And to the very same extent, it would be true in Western Europe and not least of all in the UK.
How can we encourage our pastors?
Well, obviously to pray for them, to keep them on the list, and not just to pray for them in prospect of their preaching, but pray for them while they're preaching. Only another pastor or preacher, teacher knows the sort of internal angst, agony, privilege, joy, combination of emotions that is represented and wrapped up in that experience. And, Spurgeon, the old Victorian preacher in London, told his congregation, if you will pray for me, you'll discover that my sermons are actually better than you thought they were. Notes of encouragement are good. A handwritten note means a lot in these days of emails and texts. Just consistently being there. I think of so many stalwart people over the years who haven't necessarily been in my life by dint of their personal access to me or my attachment to them. But when I look out on the congregation, I know who they are and I know they're there, and I know, at least to some extent, the self-sacrifice and commitment that they have made to be consistent through good times and not so good times when I may have appeared to have been not really on my game or off my game, but they just are faithful. Faithfulness, we come back to our marriage. Faithfulness is the key. If we're successful at certain things, that's a bonus, but we're not going for less than faithful.
After 40 years of preaching at the church that you're at now, are you ever at a loss for something to teach on?
I'm often at a loss, but not for something to teach. As long as I have my Bible, I'm fine. And because of the way we've approached the teaching at Parkside by seeking to do it systematically and consecutively and expositionally, we have, developed our own peculiar appetite, if you like. And so that means that the congregation know what I should be doing and where I should be doing it. And that in its sense exercises something of a control. And I found that to be beneficial. There's so much more of the Bible left to do. I don't have enough runway in front of me to get to all the material that I haven't yet addressed.
The Bible is so alive. Can you think of something in recent memory that you had revealed to you that you had never seen before?
I just finished a 4-part series on Matthew 11, where Jesus says, "Come to me." In the simplicity of that, I was just struck again about the danger of overcomplicating the call of the gospel itself to men and women, and to recognizing that he who identifies himself, and I think it's the only place in the Bible that he actually tells us what he's like. I mean, if people say, well, what is Jesus really like? He says, well, I'm meek and I'm lowly in heart. If anybody else were to say that, I mean, if I stood up on Sunday morning and said, the thing that you should really know about me is that I am meek and lowly in heart, someone would shout out, oh, no, you're not. But only divinity, only Christ can actually, the creator of the universe, who extends this amazing invitation, gives to us an insight into the heart of Christ, gentle, lowly, and therefore available, accessible, not quick to get rid of the people who seem to stumble, not quick with his reprimands, but so gracious. And that's why he stuck with the disciple band, and I guess that's why he continues with each of us.
Find out more about Alistair Begg and his ministry at truthforlife.org and listen for his program weeknights at 8:30 on Family Life. If you've enjoyed this episode of 10 Minutes With, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. You might also consider giving to Family Life, the listener-funded ministry that makes this and other podcasts possible. Go to familylife.org and find out more about what we do. Did you know Family Life offers a variety of podcasts? Get up to date with Family Life news or enjoy some family time with Family Life Kids. There's If That Makes Sense, a Family Life original podcast where they talk about what life is really like as a Christian in your 20s. And Terese Talk, a podcast to help women better serve their families and communities. They're all free and on demand at familylife.org/podcast.